The late afternoon sun hung low over the peaceful, manicured streets of Willow Heights, one of those neighborhoods where people brag about the community vibe, but rarely wave at anyone who didn't look like them. Every lawn was trimmed to perfection. Every driveway gleamed with polished SUVs. Every house looked like a magazine photo and felt like it had something to prove. Amid this picture-perfect world, Marcus Hale drove slowly toward the gated entrance, his old but well-maintained Honda humming beneath him. He had lived in Willow Heights for almost 2 years. Long enough to know the rules, longer still to know most of the rules never apply to everyone equally. He reached the gate, rolled down his window, and tapped in his passcode. The metal gate began to slide open with a familiar mechanical groan. That's when he heard it, a sharp, angry honk behind him. Marcus checked his mirror. A white BMW X5 appeared, shining like it just rolled out of a luxury commercial, driven by a woman whose sharp bob haircut swung with irritation as she leaned her entire upper body toward the windshield. Her face, tight, disapproving, impatient. Karen Whitlock, Willow Heights HOA board member, neighborhood self-appointed police, certified collector of grievances, and the one neighbor Marcus had learned to avoid since the day she'd asked whether he was helping someone move in. Karen flung open her car door and marched toward Marcus's window, heels clacking like authority. "Excuse me," she snapped. "You can't go in yet." Marcus blinked, puzzled. "I live here." Karen scoffed. "That's not what I asked. You can't enter until I've reported my issue to the HOA. There's been suspicious activity in the neighborhood." He sighed. "Karen, the gate was already opening. I just entered my code." "Don't call me Karen," she snapped back. "You people get too comfortable with boundaries." Marcus felt the sting, but he kept his voice controlled. "My passcode worked, meaning I'm clear to enter. That's all." She crossed her arms tightly. "I don't believe you live here, and I don't believe that code was yours. Someone must have given it to you." Marcus's patience thinned. "I live on Birch Lane. House 42. That house? No, absolutely not." Karen shook her head. "I know the residents on Birch Lane. All of them. That street doesn't have—" She paused, lips pursed, searching for a word she knew she shouldn't say. "Renters." "I'm not a renter," Marcus replied evenly. "My wife and I bought the place." Karen's eyebrows shot up. "Bought? Really?" He nodded. "That's not possible." "Why not?" "Because—" She leaned in closer, lowering her voice, but not enough that the contempt softened. "Someone would have mentioned if a new family moved and someone like you—" Marcus forced a slow exhale. "Karen, I've lived here almost 2 years." She didn't blink. "I'm calling security." She pulled out her phone, but not to call security. Marcus watched her dial 3 numbers. 911. Before he could speak, Karen stepped back and began loudly, deliberately loudly, explaining the fabricated crisis. "Yes, hello," she said with faux urgency. "I'm at Willow Heights, Gate 1. A man is trying to force entry into the community." "Yes, a black man. He refuses to let me in, and he's trying to break into the neighborhood." Marcus closed his eyes. There it was, the script she always kept ready. His heart pounded, but he stayed still, calm. He had learned long ago that moving too quickly in situations like this was a risk no amount of logic could offset. Karen's voice surged. "He's getting aggressive. I feel threatened. Please send someone right away." Aggressive? Marcus hadn't moved at all. She ended the call, lifted her chin like she just saved the neighborhood from a threat, and glared at him triumphantly. "Now step out of the car," she demanded. "No," Marcus replied. "You're resisting." "Karen, I'm literally sitting in my car." "Exactly." Her voice rose shrilly. "You're refusing instructions from a resident." "I am a resident." "Not for long." Marcus swallowed the tight, not building in his chest. "The police will come. They'll ask questions. They'll see the registration and my ID, and they'll see you're wrong." Karen smirked. "Oh, they won't question me. Officers here know who I am, and who you are." The gate slid open fully behind him, but Karen stood firmly between his car and the road ahead. "You're not going in." She pointed at his tires. Move this car an inch, and I'll tell the police you tried to run me over. Marcus's blood chilled. Then his phone buzzed. A text from Alana Redhart, on shift now. How's your day? Need anything when I get home? His wife, his calm, his anchor, and today, ironically, the one person Karen would regret involving. Because Alana Hale wasn't just his wife. She was a 911 dispatcher. And she had just received a call from a frantic HOA board member claiming a black man was breaking into Willow Heights. She had taken the call. She had heard Karen's voice. She had recognized the address. She had felt every fiber of her body freeze when she heard the description. And right now, she was calling him. His phone buzzed again. Incoming call, Alana. Marcus answered quietly. Hey. Her voice trembled, trying to stay professional. Marcus, where are you right now? At the gate. There was a pause, a long one, filled with disbelief, fear, and rising fury. Is Karen with you? She finally asked. She's the reason you got that call. Incredible, she muttered under her breath, then steadied her tone. Marcus, listen carefully. Officers are already dispatched. I'll try to intervene, but you need to stay calm until... Karen suddenly walked toward him again, eyes narrowing. Who are you talking to? More backup. Marcus covered the speaker. My wife. Karen scoffed. Of course. Let me guess. She lives in the neighborhood too? Marcus didn't answer. Karen rolled her eyes dramatically. Sure, that seems believable. On the other end, Alana heard every word. Her voice dropped into a cold, control calm Marcus rarely heard. I'll handle this. Alana, wait. The line clicked. Karen stood a few feet away, arms crossed, impatience radiating off her like heat from pavement. Then, from a distance, Marcus heard it, the rumble of an approaching patrol vehicle. Karen's lips stretched into a triumphant smile. Yes, perfect, she said. Now you'll learn you can't just waltz into neighborhoods like this. Marcus clenched his jaw. He knew the officers around here. Some were decent, others weren't. But they all knew Karen, and most believed her long before questioning her consistency or her biases. The patrol SUV turned a corner, lights flashing but siren off, signaling a nonviolent call. It pulled up near the gate, and two officers stepped out, one older, heavy-set, with a mustache, Officer Grady, and a younger, visibly tense officer, Officer Delgado. Karen immediately rushed to them, pointing at Marcus as if unveiling a criminal mastermind. That's him. That's the man trying to force his way into the neighborhood. He blocked my car and threatened me. That's not what happened, Marcus said, remaining in his seat. Officer Grady approached, hand resting lightly on his holster. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Marcus swallowed. Officer, before anything. That wasn't a request. Karen folded her arms smugly. Marcus raised his hand slowly, opened the door, and stepped out. Officer Delgado watched him with a conflicted expression, as if unsure the situation made any sense. Grady continued, ID? It's in my wallet. I'm reaching for it slowly. Do it. Marcus handed over his license. Grady examined it, frowning. You live on Birch Lane? Yes. Karen aggressively inserted herself. Impossible. That house was sold to a couple months before he appeared here. They were a nice couple. Professional. Not. Delgado cut her off sharply. Ma'am, let us handle this. Karen huffed but obeyed, barely. Officer Grady looked back at Marcus. Do you have proof of residency? Utility bill? Mail? Anything. It's in the house. Which, he gestured at the gate, I'm trying to get to, before Grady replied. All three radios on the officers crackled simultaneously. A voice came through. A familiar voice. A voice Marcus knew like the sound of his own heartbeat. Dispatch to Unit 14, stand by. Additional information on that Willow Heights call. Officer Grady pressed the radio. Go ahead, dispatch. There's a pause. Then, the individual being reported is a verified resident of Willow Heights. Repeat, he is a resident. His name is Marcus Hale, and he is clear for entry. Karen froze, confusion twisting her face. Grady frowned. Dispatch confirmed source. Another pause. Then, firmly, confirmed by primary dispatcher on scene. And for the record, Karen Whitlock has made multiple unfounded calls in the past quarter. Advise caution regarding her reports. Karen's mouth dropped open. Excuse me. That can't be. Who is that? Put me on with your supervisor. But the radio wasn't done. Additionally, every officer instinctively leaned toward the sound. The subject in question is a husband of dispatcher Alana Hale. She identified him during the call. Silence. Complete, echoing silence. Color drained from Karen's face. Officer Delgado's eyes widened. You're married to dispatch? Marcus nodded once. Karen stared at him as if reality were crumbling around her. He can't be. That's impossible. There's no way she. Grady interrupted her sharply. Ma'am, enough. Karen opened her mouth again, but this time Grady held up a firm hand. Not another word. Marcus didn't speak. For once, he didn't have to. But the radios crackled again. Alana's voice returned, cold, fierce, and unshakably professional. Officers, be advised. The subject's wife is en route to location at the resident's request. Marcus's heart stopped. He hadn't made that request. But he understood. Alana was coming because she needed to see, for herself, that he was okay. Karen turned pale. She's coming here? The dispatcher? Why would? But before she could finish, a familiar car screeched into view, a silver sedan with a department sticker on the windshield. It pulled up fast. Is that... Delgado began. Grady nodded slowly. That's her. The door swung open. Alana stepped out. Her expression was unreadable. Cold, controlled, deadly calm. Karen took a step back. Alana walked toward them, her eyes locking on Marcus first, checking him, scanning him, silently searching for signs of danger. Only when she seemed satisfied did she slowly turn her attention to Karen. And in that moment, Karen understood something she had never even considered. The man she had tried to weaponize the police against was married to the very person she trusted to send those police. And Alana? She wasn't smiling. She wasn't speaking. She was walking straight toward Karen. And she wasn't stopping. Karen stumbled back 1 step, 2 steps. Her voice trembled. W, what is she doing? Marcus knew exactly what was coming. And Karen? She was about to learn the hard way that some truths didn't just arrive. They confronted you. Head on. The air around the Willow Heights gate felt unnaturally still, as if the entire world was holding its breath. The officers, the Homeowner Patrol SUV, even the dull mechanical were the gate behind Marcus. All of it seemed to fade into a quiet that wrapped itself around the moment like a tightening fist. And at the center of it stood Alana Hale, walking with the steady, razor-sharp focus of someone who had spent years telling police officers where to go and what danger to expect, yet was now staring directly at the danger she feared most. Not danger to herself, but danger aimed at her husband. Her steps were slow but purposeful. Her eyes were locked on Karen with such unwavering intensity that even Officer Grady instinctively stepped aside, giving her a clear path. Karen's voice wavered the closer Alana came. I didn't know it was you. I didn't know he was with you. Alana didn't answer. She didn't speed up. She didn't slow down. She simply kept walking. Karen backed up until her shoulder hit the side of her own BMW. This is all a misunderstanding. Marcus watched from a few feet away, heart pounding. He had never seen his wife like this. Not angry, not shouting, but controlled in that terrifying way only people who have seen too much know how to be. Alana, Marcus said gently, hoping to soften the moment. She didn't look at him yet, not out of coldness, but because she was staring at the woman who had tried to make him another 911 statistic. When Alana finally stopped walking, she stood only a yard away from Karen, close enough that Karen's breath hitched, trembling with the sudden realization that nothing about this was going to go the way she thought. Alana spoke in a calm, unwavering voice. You called 911 because my husband entered his own neighborhood. Karen swallowed. I didn't know. I thought. You thought he didn't belong here. Karen's lips parted. I just want to keep the community safe. Alana tilted her head slightly. Safe from what? Karen blinked rapidly. Well, from people who look like him. Karen flinched as if slapped. That's not what I... Yes, Alana interrupted softly. It is? Her tone wasn't loud. It wasn't aggressive, but it was devastatingly precise. Karen seemed to shrink under it. Officer Delgado shifted uncomfortably, as if witnessing something deeply personal and deeply necessary all at once. Grady sighed, crossing his arms, clearly rethinking how many times he'd uncritically trusted Karen's calls. Alana finally turned her head, meeting Marcus's eyes. Only then did he see the fear hidden beneath her calm, the fear that had surged through her the moment she heard that 911 call, the fear that had lived inside her since the day she married a black man in a country where someone like Karen could destroy lives with a single phone call. She took a slow breath, grounding herself. I heard everything on the call, she said, turning back to Karen. Every lie, every accusation, every attempt to paint him as a threat. Karen straightened defensively. I felt threatened. By what? Alana asked sharply. By a man sitting in his own car, entering his own access code, going his own home? You don't understand, Karen stammered. I've seen suspicious people before. I've lived here for years. I know who lives where. And he doesn't fit your picture of Birch Lane, Alana finished, voice low. Karen's silence was answer enough. Officer Grady exhaled heavily. Ma'am, you made several false reports this year. This is getting serious. Karen turned on him, outraged. Why are you taking her side? You know me. Grady cut her off. I know you call 911 for things that don't need police. And I also know what a real threat looks like. This wasn't one. Karen's shoulders tightened. I'm the victim here. Alana's eyes hardened. No, you're the reason victims like my husband end up having guns pointed at them for existing. Marcus watched her, feeling a mixture of pride and gratitude and a deep ache he couldn't name. He had spent years shielding her from the daily pressure he walked with, but she had heard something today that shattered that boundary. Karen looked between them, desperate for some thread of justification. I was only trying to follow the rules. If I don't report things, the HOA says... You are the HOA, Alana snapped. You enjoy being the gatekeeper. You enjoy control. And you enjoy the power to decide who belongs and who doesn't. Karen's eyes widened as if the accusation hit a truth she wasn't ready to confront. I'm not racist. Alana shook her head slowly. Everyone claims that right up until they weaponize 911 the moment they feel uncomfortable. Karen's face trembled with a mix of defensive tears and indignation. I didn't know he was your husband. If I'd known, I never would have. Alana's voice sharpened. Exactly. That single word carved through the air like a blade. Karen flinched again. Everyone understood what it meant. If the man had been attached to someone she considered acceptable, she wouldn't have called. The problem wasn't the actions. It was the person. Officer Delgado took a step forward. Ma'am, false emergency calls can be charged as misuse of emergency services. Karen's eyes widened. What? Are you serious? I was doing my duty. Grady arched an eyebrow. Your duty is not to harass residents. Karen looked at Marcus with sudden outrage, as if he were the one betraying her instead of the other way around. Why didn't you tell me you lived here? Marcus stared at her. Because I don't owe you proof of my existence. Karen opened her mouth to argue, but no words formed. She looked around as if expecting anyone, to rush in and defend her. But every face she saw told her the same truth. She had finally crossed a line no excuse could pull her back from. Alana turned to Marcus then, her expression softening in a way that made something deep in his chest loosen. She reached out, gently cupping his face, scanning his eyes for any sign of fear or trauma he didn't want to show. Her voice dropped to a whisper only he could hear. Are you okay? He swallowed the lump in his throat. I am now. Her thumb brushed his cheek, grounding both of them. Don't scare me like that again, she murmured. He managed a small, tired smile. I didn't do anything. I know, she said. That's the part that scares me. Karen watched their moment with a complicated mix of resentment and dawning guilt. She wrapped her arms around herself as her voice cracked. I didn't mean for all this to happen. Alana turned back to her, but this time her expression was more sorrowful than furious. You didn't think your actions would escalate, but they always do. You don't get to decide how the world reacts to your paranoia. Karen blinked hard, tears forming. I want a safe neighborhood. That's all. Marcus spoke then for the first time since Alana arrived. His voice was calm but carried a weight that landed heavily. A safe neighborhood is one where everyone feels safe, not one where certain people get policed simply for existing. Karen looked down, shame creeping in as the truth settled over her. Officer Grady cleared his throat. Ma'am, we're filing an incident report, and the HOA is going to receive this record. They'll take action. Karen's breath caught. No, please. I can't lose my position. I can't. You should have thought of that before you made a false report, Delgado said gently but firmly. Karen's hands trembled as she leaned back against her BMW, suddenly looking smaller than she ever had. Alana took Marcus's hand, threaded her fingers through his, offering a silent promise. You're not facing this alone. Not today. Not ever. Let's go home, she said softly. Marcus nodded. Yeah. He glanced at the officers. We're good. Delgado nodded respectfully. If anything else happens, call us directly. Grady tipped his head. And tell your HOA to stop acting like they run the police. Marcus almost laughed. Almost. He and Alana walked toward their car, hand in hand. But just as Marcus reached for his door, Karen suddenly spoke again, her voice trembling but louder than before. Wait! He stopped, turned slowly. Karen swallowed hard, her mascara smudging from the tears she tried to hide. I'm sorry. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Are you sorry for what happened? Or sorry you're getting consequences? She flinched again, tears spilling as the brutal honesty of the question pierced through every shield she had. I'm sorry, she whispered. Really, I was wrong. I let my fear make me do something unforgivable. Alana crossed her arms, studying her. Fear isn't the problem. It's the prejudice behind it. Karen's voice cracked. I know. Alana's face softened just a little. Then fix it. Start by listening instead of assuming. And next time you feel scared of someone for no reason, ask yourself why. Karen nodded shakily. I will. For a moment, the anger in the air eased. Not because forgiveness arrived, but because accountability finally did. Marcus said nothing more, but the look he gave her wasn't vengeful. It was tired, exhausted, human. Sometimes the greatest judgment wasn't anger. It was honesty. And honesty was staring Karen in the face now, unblinking. Marcus slid into the driver's seat as Alana closed the passenger door beside him. He started the engine. As they pulled forward, the gate finally opened fully, welcoming them into the neighborhood he had fought so hard to belong to. But just as they reached the inner road, a voice called out behind them, Marcus. He paused, turning. Officer Delgado jogged up to the car window. Off the record, Delgado said quietly, I'm glad you're okay. You handled that with more patience than most people would. Marcus nodded. I didn't feel like I had much choice. Delgado hesitated. There's something you should know. This wasn't Karen's first call today. Alana frowned. What do you mean? Delgado lowered his voice. She tried calling earlier about a tall man walking a dog near the park. Turns out it was literally her neighbor's nephew. She's escalating, and she's dragging officers into her paranoia. Alana's jaw tightened. Delgado leaned closer. You two need to be careful. People like her, they don't stop easily. They double down. Marcus exchanged a look with Alana. What are you saying? He asked quietly. Delgado straightened, sighing. I'm saying, keep your guard up, because something tells me this isn't over. He stepped back, letting them drive ahead. Marcus and Alana continued through the neighborhood, unaware that Karen, still leaning against her BMW, was staring at them, not with anger this time, but with something far more volatile. Fear. Fear of consequences. Fear of exposure. Fear of losing everything she believed she controlled. And that fear had a way of twisting into something even uglier when left unchecked. Karen wiped her tears, her breath shaky. Then she whispered to herself, "This isn't my fault. It's not. They don't understand." Her fingers tightened around her phone, and the look in her eyes shifted from regret back to resentment. Dangerous resentment. The kind that doesn't fade. The kind that festers. The kind that acts. And in the quiet of her car, Karen made a decision. One that would bring chaos, conflict, and consequences neither Marcus nor Alana saw coming. The morning light settled over Willow Heights like a carefully arranged portrait. Quiet, polished, serene. But beneath that perfect suburban surface, a current rippled. The kind no one spoke about openly, yet everyone felt. Inside the Hale household, Marcus sipped coffee while staring through the kitchen window, watching a pair of joggers pass by without so much as a nod. Before last night, that was normal. Now, every unfamiliar glance made his shoulders stiffen. Alana walked into the kitchen, still in her work pants, hair tied in a loose bun. She had barely slept, replaying that 911 call over and over, hearing the tremor in Karen's voice, the accusation, the fear she had injected into the room. "You're thinking about it again," she said softly. Marcus nodded, eyes still on the window. "Feels like the whole neighborhood knows." "They probably do," she admitted, pulling out a chair. Delgado filed the incident report, and HOA gossip spreads fast. Marcus sighed. "So now I'm the story." "No," Alana said firmly. "She is. Her actions are." He gave a humorless smile. "Doesn't feel like it." She reached across the table, placing her hand over his. "We're not hiding today. We go on with our day like we always do." He squeezed her fingers gently. "I'll try." Before she could respond, someone knocked on the door, 3 sharp raps that made both of them tense. Alana exchanged a look with Marcus. "Expecting anyone?" he whispered. She shook her head. Marcus stood slowly and walked to the door. He hesitated, took a breath, and opened it. A woman in her late 50s stood outside, her hair perfectly curled, a stack of papers clutched to her chest. She wore a blazer despite the warm weather and had the rigid posture of someone who spent too much time policing others' behavior. "Good morning," she said crisply. "I'm Marjorie Kent, president of the Willow Heights HOA." Just hearing HOA made Marcus's jaw tighten. Before he could respond, Alana stepped beside him with a polite but guarded smile. "How can we help you?" Marjorie forced a smile. "I'd like to speak about yesterday's situation." Marcus braced. "Of course," Alana said carefully. "Come in." Marjorie stepped inside, her eyes sweeping over the decor as though assessing whether it met the neighborhood aesthetic standards. They sat around the living room coffee table. Marjorie placed a stack of papers down with pointed precision. "As you know," she began, folding her hands, "there was an incident involving one of our board members, Karen Walsh." "Yes," Marcus said. "We're aware." Marjorie's lips tightened. "It reflects poorly on the community when police are called unnecessarily." Alana leaned forward slightly. "It reflects poorly on the community when residents weaponize the police because of bias." Marjorie blinked at the word weaponize, clearly uncomfortable. "Yes, well, that is the issue I'm here to discuss." She took a breath, choosing her next words carefully. "The HOA board had an emergency meeting this morning. Karen is temporarily suspended from her position." Marcus raised his eyebrows. "That was fast." "Well," Marjorie said, glancing away, "this is not her first complaint." Alana's eyes narrowed. "How many?" Marjorie hesitated. "Several." "Meaning?" Alana pressed. Marjorie exhaled, uncomfortable. 6, in the last 2 months. Marcus let out a low whistle. "Wow." She reported a pool visitor for loitering, a family picnic for unauthorized gathering, 2 teens skateboarding. She even complained about a delivery driver looking suspicious. Alana stared at her, and yet she stayed on the board. Marjorie's cheeks flushed. "Karen is persuasive, and she's been part of the community for a long time." Marcus laughed bitterly. "Translation, Nobody wanted to deal with her. Marjorie didn't deny it. She shifted, sliding one document toward them. This is a statement the HOA plans to release to residents. We wanted to inform you before it goes out. Alana read the header. Community notice. Misuse of emergency services and temporary suspension of board member. But as she skimmed the content, her eyebrows shot upward. This makes it sound like a minor disagreement, she said sharply. There's no mention of false accusations. No mention of racial profiling. Marjorie stiffened. We prefer to keep things neutral to prevent escalation. Neutrality protects the aggressor, Alana said coldly. It's not our intention, Marjorie began. But it's the result, Marcus finished. Marjorie's jaw tightened as if bracing herself. Listen, I'm here because I want to avoid further conflict. Karen is humiliated. She's upset. And what? Marcus cut in. You're here to ask us to stay quiet? Marjorie swallowed. Well, in a manner of speaking, yes. Alana sat back slowly, her expression turning icy. You want to silence us. To protect the community's image, Marjorie insisted. We don't want drama. We don't want division. Marcus stared at her with disbelief. Division happened the moment an innocent man had the police called on him for existing. Marjorie looked genuinely flustered now. I understand your frustration. I do. But we must be reasonable here. Alana's voice sharpened. Reasonable? No. What you want is convenient. What you want is silence. Marjorie's composure wavered. I'm trying to resolve this peacefully, she said finally. Then start by telling the truth, Marcus replied. Marjorie pressed her lips together, unable to respond. It was clear she expected compliance, maybe even gratitude. But instead, she found resistance, firm, unwavering resistance. She stood abruptly, smoothing her blazer. I will bring your concerns to the board. Alana rose as well. Do that. Marjorie gathered her papers and moved toward the door. But before she stepped outside, she paused. One more thing, she said quietly. Karen isn't coping well with the suspension. She feels cornered. Marcus frowned. That sounds like a warning. Considered advice, Marjorie replied. Be careful. People do unpredictable things when they feel threatened. Alana's expression hardened. We didn't threaten her. She threatened us. Marjorie nodded stiffly and left. The door closed behind her with a heavy click. For a moment, the house was silent. Then Marcus exhaled. I knew it. They want to sweep it under the rug. Alana paced. Of course they do. They'd rather blame us for telling the truth than deal with Karen's pattern. Marcus rubbed his temples. You think Karen's going to retaliate? Alana's step slowed. Yes. Delgado wasn't wrong. She didn't look done. Marcus sighed. We need to be prepared. Before they could discuss further, there was a sudden sound outside. Car doors, multiple of them. Raised voices. Footsteps. Marcus and Alana exchanged tense glances and walked to the living room window. A crowd of neighbors was gathering near the cross street. Some whispered, some pointed, some looked anxious. Others held their phones like they were waiting for a spectacle. And at the center of the group, Karen. She was standing with her arms folded, chin held high, eyes red but blazing with stubborn defiance. Her hair looked slightly unkempt, as if she'd been pacing or crying or both. When she spotted Marcus and Alana through the window, her face tightened with something between anger and desperation. Oh, God, Alana muttered. She's rallying people. Marcus clenched his jaw. Let's find out what's going on. They stepped outside. The moment Marcus and Alana appeared, conversations in the crowd hushed. Karen took a step forward. There they are, she said loudly. The couple trying to ruin my life. Alana's eyes flashed. Excuse me? You heard me. Karen pointed at them dramatically. They're trying to get me expelled from the HOA. They're spreading lies about me. They're making me look like some sort of racist monster. Marcus stared. We didn't start anything. You called the police on me. Karen's voice cracked as she shouted, because I was scared. A few neighbors murmured sympathetically. Others exchanged uneasy looks. Alana remained calm. Karen, you called 911 4 times in the last week for people who were not threats, including my husband. Karen glared. He wouldn't tell me where he lived. That's suspicious. Marcus stepped forward. I don't owe you my address. That's what criminals say. Karen snapped, pointing at him. I didn't know who you were. I didn't know if you belonged here. A wave of gasps passed through the crowd. A man in the back whispered, Did she really say that? Karen whipped around. I'm protecting our neighborhood. No, Alana said softly. You're controlling it, and you're doing it with fear. Karen's eyes reddened. I'm not the villain. They're turning everyone against me. They're making false accusations. Alana let out a slow, steady breath. Karen, the 911 call is recorded. That's not an accusation. That's evidence. Karen froze. Her face changed, panic flickering beneath the anger. You're trying to destroy me, she said, voice trembling. No, Marcus replied. We're trying to stop you from destroying anyone else. Karen's expression twisted, something dark and unstable surfacing. You don't get it, she whispered. This is my neighborhood. I've kept it safe for years. People trust me. They always have. Not anymore, someone muttered. Karen spun toward the voice, eyes wild. Who said that? The crowd stepped back. Another neighbor, an older man with white hair, spoke up. Karen, you need help, not another spotlight. I don't need help, she screamed. I need people to listen. They are listening, Alana said gently, but you're not hearing yourself. Karen's eyes darted between them. Frantic. Please, she said suddenly, voice breaking. Just don't tell the board everything. Don't push for me to be removed. I've given everything to this place. Everything. Alana stepped forward compassionately. Karen, accountability isn't destruction. It's responsibility. Karen shook her head violently. You're doing this to me. You're ruining my life. Marcus swallowed. This wasn't just guilt. This was unraveling. Karen took another shaky step toward them. If you go through with this, if you try to remove me, her voice dropped into something brittle and dangerous. I won't go down quietly. The crowd gasped. Alana's eyes hardened. Is that a threat? Karen didn't answer. Her silence was the answer. A neighbor pulled out their phone. I'm recording this. This is enough. Karen's face crumpled. Anger, shame, fear all swirling. Then she spun around and stormed back toward her house, shoving past people, nearly tripping on the curb. The crowd slowly dispersed after a tense few minutes, whispering, shaken. Marcus and Alana were left standing alone at the edge of their driveway, watching Karen slam her door shut across the street. Inside, lights flicked on and off, shadows pacing rapidly behind curtains. Alana exhaled shakily. She's spiraling. Marcus nodded. And spiraling people make drastic decisions. Alana turned to him. We need to talk to board, and maybe even security. Marcus looked toward Karen's house, thinking of Delgado's warning. This is going to get worse before it gets better, he murmured. Alana took his hand. Then we face it together. But before they could go inside, Marcus's phone buzzed. A new message from an unknown number. He opened it and froze. A single sentence glowed on the screen. If you don't stop this, I'll make sure you regret ever moving here. No signature. No name. But Marcus didn't need one. He knew exactly who sent it. Alana's breath caught when she saw his expression. What happened? Marcus turned the screen toward her. She read it, and her voice turned cold. We need to call the police. Marcus nodded slowly. Yeah, this time we're the ones making the report. But neither of them realized just how far Karen was willing to go, and the next step she would take would shake the entire neighborhood. The conference room felt heavier than ever as Daniel sat across from the HOA board. His leg bounced under the table, not from fear, but from the weight of everything that had been done to him. Behind him, the quiet hum of conversations faded as the door slowly closed, sealing him, Maya, and his wife Elena inside with the people who had turned his life into a battleground. Maya sat still, fingers interlaced tightly, her eyes darting between the board members. Elena stood behind Daniel, one hand on his shoulder, grounding him. Across the table, Karen sat with her arms crossed, chin raised, radiating smugness. Beside her, a neatly dressed man in a suit, her husband, Leonard, flipped through a binder like he already knew how this would end. Daniel could feel the tension like static electricity. It didn't matter how many times he reminded himself he had proof, witnesses, video, and the truth. The struggle wasn't evidence. It was power, and the people sitting across from him had been abusing it for months. The board president, an older man named Arthur, cleared his throat. "Let's begin. This is a grievance hearing requested by Daniel Brooks regarding the events of last week and ongoing harassment allegations. All parties may give statements." He gestured toward Daniel. "You may start." Daniel stood, palms pressed flat on the table. His voice started steady but carried emotion beneath it. "Thank you. Before anything else, I want something to be clear. I am not here because I caused trouble. I am here because trouble was forced onto me. I am here because a neighbor targeted me, lied about me, harassed my family, tried to paint me as a threat in my own home, and last week escalated it by calling the police on me, just because she felt entitled to enter my house." Across the table, Karen scoffed loudly. "Here we go again." Daniel ignored her. "I have lived here 5 years. Never missed a payment. Never caused an issue. I help my neighbors when they need it. I respect this community. But I haven't received the same respect in return." He looked directly at Karen. "I've received slurs muttered under breath. HOA warnings for things my neighbors also did with no consequence. Notes left on my door telling me I don't belong. And I tolerated it because I believed in peace." Karen rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh, please." Arthur lifted a hand. "Ms. Boyd, you'll have your turn." Daniel continued. "Last week, Karen followed me to my door. She demanded I let her into my own home. When I refused, because obviously I should refuse, she called 911 and tried to get me arrested. My wife, who happened to be the dispatcher on duty, answered that call." Maya flinched, remembering the moment. Daniel swallowed hard before adding, "This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was weaponizing fear, race, and privilege." He reached into his folder and placed a printed transcript of Karen's 911 call on the table. Maya slid it forward. "I have evidence. All of it." And then he sat. Arthur turned to Karen. "Your statement." Karen stood instantly like she had been waiting for her spotlight. "Thank you." Finally, her voice carried a smug righteousness that made Elena's jaw tighten. "Let me be very clear. I acted for the safety of this neighborhood. I saw him." She pointed at Daniel like he was an object, acting suspicious. He was lingering near houses, walking slowly between driveways. Daniel leaned forward. "I was talking to Maya. A human conversation, not suspicious activity." Karen continued loudly, drowning him out. "I didn't know he lived there. I have never seen him do normal homeowner things. He's barely at HOA meetings. He doesn't interact with people. I'm sorry, but how am I supposed to know he wasn't some stranger trying to force his way inside?" Elena's voice sliced through the tension. "By using the brain you claim to have." Karen pointed a finger. "Your husband attacked me with aggression. He raised his voice. He made me feel unsafe." Daniel slammed his palm lightly on the table. "You tried to walk into my house." Arthur lifted both hands. "Enough. Let her finish." Karen inhaled dramatically. "I called 911 because I felt threatened, and if his wife happens to work for them, that's convenient for them but irrelevant. I am not racist. I'm cautious." Maya's expression twisted with disgust. Karen added, "I request that Daniel be fined for hostile behavior, and that the HOA reconsider security protocols to prevent suspicious individuals from roaming." The room exploded with voices. Elena stood. Maya rose half out of her chair, Daniel's hands balled into fists. But Arthur banged his gavel. "All of you, sit." When silence finally settled, Karen smirked. She thought she had won. But something shifted as Arthur turned toward Daniel's wife. "Elena, you were the dispatcher who took the call. Do you have something to add?" Elena stepped forward like a storm given human form. Yes, and I have more than something to add. She placed her phone on the table, screen facing the board. This is the audio from the 911 call. I am authorized to play it because it concerns a criminal misuse of emergency services, and because it implicates attempted false reporting. Karen blanched. Elena pressed play. The room filled with Karen's shaking voice from that day. There's a black man trying to break into a house. He refuses to let me inside. Elena paused it. Let me be very clear, she said softly. Karen wasn't afraid. She was angry. Angry that a black man didn't obey her. Angry that he didn't treat her like she was in charge. She raised her chin. I know the difference between fear and entitlement. I hear panic every day. That call? That was control, manipulation, and malice. Maya whispered under her breath. She's done. Karen's husband leaned forward. This is outrageous. You're taking out of context. Daniel cut him off. The only context is that your wife tried to ruin my life. The board members exchanged looks. The atmosphere shifted completely. For the first time, Karen looked uncertain. Leonard pushed forward a different approach. Even if she misunderstood the situation, calling 911 is her right. Arthur raised a hand. No, calling 911 under false pretenses is a crime. And an HOA complaint weaponized like this is unacceptable. The room stayed silent for a long moment. Arthur asked, Daniel, do you have any further evidence? Daniel nodded once. My security camera caught part of the interaction. He pulled out his tablet and pressed play. The video showed Karen stepping into Daniel's personal space, insisting she enter, raising her phone to call police and shouting threats. The board members leaned forward, watching every second. This is just the beginning, Daniel said. I have copies and legal counsel. Karen's composure cracked like thin glass. Her voice trembled. This is blown out of proportion. Arthur looked straight at her. Karen, based on this evidence and pending an official investigation, you are suspended from all HOA activities, effective immediately. Karen's mouth dropped open. You can't do that. We can, Arthur replied firmly. And we must. Her eyes darted wildly. You're taking his side? His. Arthur's tone sharpened. We are taking the side of truth, and community, and decency. But Karen wasn't done. She stood so fast her chair crashed backward. Her voice rose, shrill and venomous. You think this is over? You think you can humiliate me? I am this neighborhood. I built everything here. You're all nothing without me. Leonard tried to pull her back, but she yanked her arm away. You'll regret siding against me, she spat. All of you. Especially you, she pointed at Daniel, her fingers shaking with fury. You have no idea who you're messing with. Elena stepped protectively closer to her husband. He's not the one who should be worried. Karen glared at them. I am going to destroy you. Then she stormed out, slamming the door behind her so hard the glass rattled. For a moment, silence settled over the room. Maya whispered, She's completely unhinged. What is she planning? The board president sighed heavily, rubbing his temples. We will document everything. For now, everyone needs to keep their distance. Daniel felt no relief, because Karen didn't sound defeated. She sounded dangerous. Elena squeezed his hand. She won't touch you. Not while I'm here. Arthur dismissed everyone, and they stepped into the hallway. Maya exhaled shakily. You won, right? Daniel didn't answer immediately. He listened to the echo of Karen's last threat. No, he finally said. She's not done. Elena nodded grimly. People like her never bow out quietly. They walked through the lobby of the HOA building toward the exit. The sun was setting, painting the glass windows orange. But instead of warmth, Daniel felt something cold settle in his stomach. As they reached the parking lot, Maya suddenly stopped. Daniel, she whispered. Look. Across the pavement, leaning against a silver SUV, stood Karen. Her arms were crossed. Her eyes were locked on them. Her face was twisted with something darker than anger, something almost feral. When she saw them notice her, she slowly, deliberately smiled. A smile that promised trouble. A smile that promised revenge. She mouthed two silent words across the distance. "Watch me." Then she got into her car and drove off. Elena felt her heart drop. That's not good. Daniel stared at the fading taillights. She's going to escalate. Maya bit her lip. But how? And when Daniel turned toward his wife and friend, a feeling of dread creeping up his spine. "I don't know," he said quietly, "but something tells me we're about to find out." And as they walked to their cars, none of them noticed a black sedan parked across the street. A camera lens poked out of the half-open window, recording, watching, waiting. The next move was already in motion. The city was quieter than usual that night, wrapped in a stillness that felt unnatural, like the world itself was waiting for something to break, something to shift. Soft yellow light spilled from the windows of the community center, where the emergency HOA meeting was underway. But outside, Marcus stood completely alone under a flickering street lamp, not because he was excluded, but because he needed this moment, this last breath before the storm. He inhaled deeply. He had confronted racism, humiliation, false accusations, and an attempt to strip him of his home. But none of it compared to the weight he carried now. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about every person who ever had their truth ignored. Every husband who felt powerless. Every wife who had to listen through a 911 line as her partner was targeted. Every community that had been taught to distrust someone because of the color of their skin. Marcus slowly closed his eyes. Inside the building, the room was packed. Nearly every resident had shown up. Lila sat near the front, fingers intertwined tightly on her lap, eyes flicking toward the door every few seconds. Beside her sat Dispatch Chief Branson, and across from them, sitting stiffly with her arms crossed, was Karen, or as she preferred to be addressed tonight, Mrs. Cynthia Holloway, treasurer of the Ridgeway HOA. She wore a black blazer and an expression she probably reserved for courtroom dramas and PDA meetings where she wanted to feel superior. But Lila noticed something new in Karen's eyes tonight. Fear, not of being caught, but of being exposed. The HOA president, Mr. Lansing, cleared his throat loudly. "We will begin once Mr. Turner arrives." "Of course," Karen muttered. "He's late to his own hearing." "Typical." Lila turned her head sharply. "He's outside collecting himself. Unlike some people, he's not used to being attacked for existing." Karen scoffed. "Oh, spare me the dramatics. No one attacked him. I called for help because I felt unsafe. That's what the police are for." Branson's jaw flexed. "You called because you felt entitled. And because you assumed." Karen raised an eyebrow. "Oh, and you somehow know that." Branson didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, he glanced toward the door. And right then, the door opened. Marcus stepped in. He didn't look beaten down. He didn't look afraid. He didn't even look angry. He looked ready. The room quieted, so suddenly the air itself seemed to freeze. Karen tried not to react, but the small twitch in her cheek betrayed her. Marcus walked to the front, standing beside Lila. His hand brushed hers, just a second of grounding connection, and she exhaled. President Lansing adjusted some papers and said, "Mr. Turner, we are here to determine whether your behavior constitutes grounds for HOA penalties or removal." Marcus blinked. "My behavior?" Several neighbors murmured in agreement, not supporting Karen, but shocked at the phrasing. Karen leaned forward. "Yes, you refuse to identify yourself. You refuse me entry into the building. You didn't live in the building," Marcus said calmly. "Well, my friend did," she snapped. "Which you never proved," he replied. Karen huffed. "He didn't have to. You impeded a resident. You escalated the situation. And then the police arrived because you were being aggressive." Lila almost shot out her chair, but Marcus raised a gentle hand. He wasn't here to react. He was here to reveal. President Lansing nodded stiffly. "Mr. Turner, before we proceed, you may present your defense." Marcus inhaled slowly. "I don't have a defense." Everyone tensed. Marcus continued. "Because I didn't do anything wrong, but I do have the truth. Karen rolled her eyes. Right. Let's hear this dramatic monologue. Branson stood. It's not a monologue. It's a recorded 911 call. Karen froze. Her face went pale in less than a second. You're not allowed to play that, she stammered. I didn't consent. You don't have to, Branson said. The call is public record. Karen swallowed hard. Branson pressed play. 911 audio recording. Playing. Karen's voice filled the room, sharp and panicked. There's a man trying to block me from entering the building. He's big. He's threatening. Please send someone fast. The room shifted. Several people gasped. Branson's voice came next on a recording, smooth but alert. Ma'am, what exactly is the man doing? He's standing in front of me. He won't let me in. He's aggressive. Has he touched you? No, but he looks like he's going to. Branson paused the audio. Ms. Holloway, he said softly, were you threatened? Karen's jaw trembled. I felt threatened. Branson pressed play again. Ma'am, is he yelling? No. Is he physically blocking you? Well, no, but he's not letting me pass. But has he told you that you cannot enter? No, but he isn't moving. Branson paused the audio again. The room was dead silent. Karen's lips pressed into a thin line. Marcus spoke gently. I stepped aside the second she asked. Lila nodded. He always does. It's basic courtesy. President Lansing rubbed his forehead as if fighting a headache. Branson pressed play again. This time, the tone in Karen's voice was shrill. You don't understand. People like him lie. He's pretending to live here. He's hostile. Please send someone now. A collective gasp echoed through the room. Marcus didn't move. He didn't blink. He had heard the audio earlier with Branson, but hearing it here, louder, clearer, was like a punch that didn't land on skin, but on the soul. A neighbor. Mrs. Dalton whispered, horrified. People like him? Karen suddenly stood. Stop the audio. This is unnecessary. I told you. I genuinely felt unsafe. Branson tilted his head. Let's continue. He pressed play. Karen's voice rose again. And you know what? His wife works for you people. That dispatcher girl? She's probably covering for him. They're working together. Lila's heart stopped. Marcus's stomach twisted. The room exploded with murmurs, shocked and disgusted. Branson paused the recording for a final time. His eyes landed on Karen, voice steady. That dispatcher girl is my best employee. She's saved more lives in this neighborhood than anyone in this room. And tonight, she saved her own husband. Karen looked physically ill. Her legs wobbled. She gripped the table to keep from collapsing. Lila felt her breath catch, the words hitting her harder than she expected, because in the middle of the chaos, she'd forgotten something crucial. Her voice had saved Marcus. Branson sat down. President Lansing removed his glasses. Ms. Holloway, do you disagree with anything we heard? Karen swallowed. I might have exaggerated. Exaggerated? Mrs. Dalton snapped. You lied. Karen's face crumpled. I was scared. You were prejudiced, another neighbor said. You profiled him, someone else added. Karen raised her hands helplessly. I didn't mean to. Marcus finally spoke. His voice was calm. Too calm. Intent matters. But so does impact. Karen slowly turned toward him. He was the only one not yelling, and that made it worse. Marcus continued. I wasn't aggressive. I wasn't threatening. I wasn't blocking you. You called the police on me because I made you uncomfortable, not because I did anything wrong. Karen's lips parted. I didn't. You did, he said simply. Silence. Heavy. Unmovable. Lila squeezed Marcus's hand, tears forming. President Lansing straightened. Based on the evidence, Ms. Holloway, you violated community policy, filed a false emergency claim, and endangered a resident. Karen shook her head rapidly. No, you can't. You will be removed from the HOA board effective immediately. The room erupted, some relieved, some angry, everyone stunned. Karen placed a hand on her chest. I've been on the board for 9 years. I I shaped this community. That's the problem, Lansing said softly. Karen backed away from the table. Her eyes darted around, but there was no sympathy, no support, no rescue. She turned sharply and stormed out. The heavy wooden door slammed behind her. The tension broke. People stood up at once, some approaching Marcus to apologize, some patting him on the back, others thanking him for standing up not just for himself, but for every resident who had ever been pushed aside. Lila leaned into him, whispering, "It's over. Finally." But Marcus wasn't sure. Something inside him wasn't celebrating. Not yet, because justice wasn't the same as healing. And not all wounds healed at the same pace. President Lansing cleared his throat again. "Thank you for helping us uncover the truth. We owe both of you an apology." Marcus nodded, but his face remained thoughtful, processing everything. Branson approached him. "You good, Turner?" Marcus exhaled. "Not yet, but I will be." Branson nodded slowly. "When you're ready, there's something else you should know." Marcus frowned. "What?" Branson extended a small device, a recorder. "I kept the line open longer than the official call," he said. "You should hear what your wife said after the situation ended." Lila's face flushed. "Wait, no, you don't need to." Marcus gently took the recorder, pressing play. Lila's voice came through, shaky, emotional. "Please tell the officers to go easy. He's not dangerous. He's not hostile. He's just scared. He doesn't deserve this. Not again. Please, just bring him home safe." Marcus closed his eyes. He didn't realize how much he needed to hear those words until they hit him like a wave. Lila stepped closer, eyes shining. "I didn't know you'd ever hear that." He pulled her into his chest. "I needed to." The room slowly emptied until only the two of them remained. Marcus finally let the exhaustion of the last 48 hours settle in his bones. "I don't want this to break us," Lila whispered. "It won't," he replied. "It made me see how strong we are." She pressed her forehead to his. "Promise?" He smiled softly. "I promise." They stood there together, wrapped in a moment that felt heavier and lighter all at once, like the closing of a door and the opening of another. Outside, the night had finally shifted. The stillness was gone, replaced by something warm, something honest, something hopeful, because the truth had spoken louder than fear. And everyone had heard it, but the story wasn't ending here. Not for Marcus, not for Lila, not for the community that had just seen what justice looked like. A new beginning was just starting. A beginning built not on comfort or silence, but on courage, and the courage to be seen.